Hey everybody, welcome to Mind Controllers, a podcast about shining the light on the psychological aspects behind some of our favorite video games. I'm your host, Joe Moreno, joined by my co-host,
Brandon Craw.
And today we'll be talking about Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, finally.
Yes. Yeah. This game has just been on our minds since we stopped playing it, and it's kind of crazy that we still are thinking about it. Probably going to be our game of the year. But, yeah, that's a little too early to tell, but I don't know. How are you feeling about it?
I mean, I really love this game.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned I was at 102 hours when I finished this game.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so I really enjoyed it. I did like a lot of the side quests, a lot of the dungeons, the extra dungeons, right? I really, really like this game a lot.
I know. Yeah, you did. And you've been a fan of the series for a while now, right?
Yeah, so I started playing in 2018 with Yakuza 0. So that's where I started, and I started going through them, you know, Yakuza 1, Kiwami, 2, Kiwami, 3 remake. I was, I think, an undergrad, and graduated from undergrad and grad school. So this series has taken me like a while to get through.
Yeah.
There's a lot of games and a lot of content.
You've been with it for, you said 2018, so that's about 6 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah. That's a long time to develop these like relationships with these characters.
Yeah. And I love each and every one of these games, you know. They're just so much fun. They're interesting. There's like nothing else like it out in the market.
I'm going to put you in the hot seat. Can you pick a favorite out of all the Yakuza games right now?
Ooh. I think Yakuza 0.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That one's really, really fun. It's still the beat 'em up, right? That's where you know. But you also have Majima's story, which is, you know, he's another major character that we kind of see in Infinite Wealth a little bit, right? But he has a major role in 0, and I think that's what takes the cake for me. It's that we get a little bit more about Majima.
Okay. Yeah. I'm struggling a bit to remember who Majima is.
He's the one with the eye patch.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Part of the...
spoilers, right?
Yeah. We haven't given the spoiler warning yet, but okay, cool. I guess that contrasts with me, who this is my first Yakuza game. Like a Dragon now. Yeah, and I absolutely loved it. Like I probably said before, where I honestly didn't have this game on my radar, mostly because I tried the first Like a Dragon, and maybe because it was on Game Pass, where I just didn't give it more than like 30 minutes to an hour.
Okay. Yeah.
I forgot why I booted it up and then what I went to afterwards, but I really wish I had stuck with it. So because you had mentioned your excitement for this game made me excited, and it seemed like a really fun JRPG, and I wasn't expecting to fall in love with every character and stan Ichiban Kasuga so hard as I did.
Yeah. Great character.
This game is amazing. Yeah, I guess we should probably just dive right into it. And we already are, but you know, we got to do our little like spoiler and warning and everything first.
So spoiler warning, you know, we are going to be talking about Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth and anything related to the game and the associated characters. Like all of our discussions, all of these characters are fictional and have no intended resemblance to any person or, you know, real thing. Mm-hmm. We are not licensed therapists and do not have an authority to make official diagnosis. I am an associate therapist.
Yes.
Brandon?
I got my clinical psychology degree, master's, but not an official therapist.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So we can't make any sort of diagnosis.
Yeah, we aren't this episode either.
Oh yeah. We're not doing like a character analysis. What we are going to do throughout the episode is talk about our two favorite characters, the main characters of the game, Ichiban Kasuga and
Kiryu Kazuma.
I was going to say Kazuma Kiryu, so I'm glad you stepped in right there. Yeah, Kiryu Kazuma. Yeah, but I guess before that, should probably tell you a bit about what this game is about, in case anyone's a little unfamiliar. I'd like to give a narrative description first to start things off. So, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, you know, this is a Japanese RPG set in a real-world setting of modern-day Hawaii and Japan. It kind of goes between the two throughout the game. And this game came out in January 2024. And this is also the 9th game of the Like a Dragon series, which was formerly known as Yakuza. And fun fact, the 19th game from that development studio, I believe. Okay. Yeah. I know that. I didn't see what the other games were, but there's some wiki article that mentioned that they made 19 games. I'm like, whoa, it's kind of deep. That's a lot for a development studio. So, this game starts off with Ichiban Kasuga. He's a former member of the Yakuza, and this is about 3 years, I guess, depending on what point you jump in. It's about 2 to 3 years after the Great Dissolution that was supposed to dissolve the majority of the Yakuza throughout Japan. Kasuga is now working at an employment agency named Hello Work and is assisting these ex-Yakuza find their way back into society, which is proving difficult because there's this 5-year clause that excludes Yakuza from certain liberties, such as like, what was it? Like even owning a cell phone, right?
Yeah.
Some restrictive stuff like that. Was there anything about a driver's license or not being able to drive? I forget if they
I would assume that fits in there as well.
Yeah. And I think this is like analogous to some real world thing. I think there's actually like some sort of 5-year clause in Japanese law, but we're also not political scientists, nor do I have any knowledge of Japan's politics and laws, so don't quote me on that. Yeah, so it's harder for these Yakuza to find their way back into society because of this clause. So unfortunately, though, Ichiban is promptly laid off from this job of helping other Yakuza due to a viral video that calls him out for being a former Yakuza member and falsely accuses him of hiring these ex-Yakuza to steal on his behalf. So Ichiban, Kasuga, and his friends, who we'll describe a bit later, find themselves at the HQ of the Seiryu clan. And the Seiryu clan was like the current... It's funny because they're not branding themselves as Yakuza, but they're clearly still Yakuza. And they're still kind of in charge of the Yakuza in their area. So they end up going to their headquarters looking for answers, but there they find Ibina, who is now the head of the Seiryu clan, and Ibina asks Ichiban to go to Hawaii to find his biological mother, Akane. And while in Hawaii, Ichiban runs into Kazuma Kiryu, who is a friend and the former head of the Tojo clan, as Kiryu is working for the Daidoji faction, which is like a secretive political group, who is also trying to investigate Akane and this important child who was last seen with Akane named Lani. So throughout the game, we follow Ichiban and Kiryu together, and as they separate to Hawaii and Japan, as they're following their respective leads to find Akane, to find Lani, and get to the bottom of everything. So, but yeah, that's narratively what's happening. But Joe, what is the gameplay like?
So let's see. Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth plays in a third-person point of view, in which you run around the streets. You know, it seems to be Honolulu, Hawaii, and Yokohama and Tokyo, right? And Tokyo. You primarily control either Ichiban or Kiryu, depending on the chapter of the city. The world is littered with people who you can interact with or assist in side quests. There are also groups of enemies that you can approach and engage in battle. And they all have names, right? They're all like thugs or like... There's the bad cops in Hawaii are called Misdemeanor Wiener. I don't know if you...
Oh, really?
Yeah, if you looked at any of the names, they're like... Those names are crazy.
Yeah, those names are so goofy.
Yeah, goons, right? And you're just fighting everything. And everyone, right, that approaches you. It's funny.
It's so fun. And then, like, I forgot to mention that they, like, turn into... Their outfits will change to, like, show that Kasuga or whoever the main character is like seeing them in like this weird like video game world.
Dragon Quest.
Yeah, Dragon Quest. Yeah. So like these people, they're dressed in like business suits and stuff, but as soon as you engage in combat with them, they're like wearing a clown outfit or I don't know, carrying a surfboard or something. It's so goofy and fun.
Yeah, like there's some guys that are like in sleeping bags, right?
Oh yeah,
they kind of look like Metapod or something.
Yes,
right?
Yeah,
and they have like a string shot kind of attack too.
I know.
So it's fun, you know. It's a fun setting. Mm-hmm. So once in battle, the game has you take turns as you choose attacks or skills to execute against the enemies, and you're able to move around in a confined area and decide on your attacks. And also like your attacks will have like pushback. It'll push back the enemy, so you can actually like smack enemies into other enemies and does damage to everyone, which is pretty cool. So position matters for certain attacks. Yeah, you can line them up, right? Kind of like bowling pins at one point.
It's so satisfying.
It is.
Combat, oh man. Yeah, it's hard to find another JRPG that's able to capture this feel of combat where it feels like active, but it's still... you kind of have your time and it does kind of slow down a bit and you could strategize, but then there's also some moments where it does reward you for like attacking quickly because the enemy's like on the ground and they have like 3 seconds before they get up, so you better like go and kick them in the face real quick.
And you get bonus damage for that.
Yeah,
you do. And sometimes the characters will follow up, right? So like you'll kick them while you're down, while they're down, right? And then the other characters go like, I got you, I'll kick them as well.
Yeah, but only if you level their like relationship high enough will they then interact and assist you in battle, which is so cool.
Which is the incentive, right? That's the incentive to do like the story stuff, to know your friends, right? Because you get stronger in battle, kind of like Persona, right? I mean, it's Sega, right?
Oh man.
Outside of battles and questing, there are games that like mini games placed throughout the map. There's like a Pokemon Snap one where you're taking pictures of sickos, I think they're called. They're like buff dudes in like masks and stuff posing.
Exactly.
Crazy Taxi, where it's a like food delivery, so you're on a bike, get the food right and deliver it as quick as you can. And there's also like a Pokemon like game called Sujimon. You're a Sujimon trainer and you're collecting dudes off the street to fight for you, right? Did you do any of the gym battles for the Sujimon?
I did the first gym battle. Like I did that whole sequence. I low-key want to go back to the game and like finish that whole thing off. It seemed pretty satisfying, huh?
Yeah, it was really fun. Also, like when you're in the gym, like the narrator or the commentator, like they just say the craziest stuff. They're like, oh, it's off to the glue farm with this one or stuff like that, because they're beating each other. They're beating each other up. It's so fun, and it's actually challenging because it doesn't let you over level, right?
Oh, right.
It caps you.
It does cap you. It's interesting how it keeps you. It tries to prevent you from like you said, over leveling. Like I don't know. When I was a kid who am I kidding? I still play Pokemon all the time. Whenever a new one comes out, but I always would like over level so that I could just walk right up to the gym battle and just like wipe the gym with my over leveled. Why is Charmander always the first Pokemon to come to mind? I was trying to pull out some new one, but of course I was drawing a blank. So it's a good system, and also honestly like even the battling system for the Sujimon is like pretty 3v3. Yeah. I don't know. It scratches that Pokemon itch and it kind of excels on it. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was really fun. Also, let's see. The game also includes the ability to change the members of your party when fighting. In addition to setting their equipment, you can even change their classes. And what I like about this, it's like these aren't like regular JRPG classes.
Not like mage.
You're not a
warrior,
white mage,
hunter,
right? A red mage.
Yep.
You're like a football player, a tennis star.
It was like a barmaid.
Aquanaut?
Yeah, Aquanaut. It was.
It's just like a surfer.
Surfer.
It's a surfer. Yeah.
Yeah. Calling him an Aquanaut.
I was like, okay. Did you hear about the classes that didn't make it into the full game?
No, I didn't.
So I know there was 3, but the 2 I remember is basketball player, which would have been really sweet. That would have
been fun.
And exterminator.
Exterminator.
Yeah, because Hawaii's got lots of bugs.
Oh, yeah. Wow, that would have been cool. And then like have them focus on like poisoning as like a status effect. Because I feel like some of the classes, like once again, drawing a blank. I guess like samurai, they have a blade, so then they inflict a lot of like different
bleed
statuses, like bleed. There's some other ones that would inflict soak or wet. But yeah, I know there were some that do poison, but maybe I didn't play as one, but there wasn't one I remember that focused on poison. So
I think you're right.
Terminator would have been cool.
Yeah. And also like one status element is like sick, right?
Oh yeah, super generic.
Yeah. And I'm
you're sick. Cool. Can't fight now.
But yeah, I mean, that's so, each chapter you're going through with a group, right? Eventually you're able to change the jobs, right? So you can experiment, right? And what's cool is like once you hit a certain level, you can keep some of the, I think bond levels, which is the friendship level. Think about it that way. You can keep some of the skills you have in the old jobs that you've mastered.
Yes.
So you can have like samurai skills with the football player, with the Aquanaut, right? It lets you mix and match, which is pretty cool with the job system.
I really like that job system because it's like on the surface, it's pretty simple if you don't want to engage with any of like the more in-depth stuff, like with the job system or like with the skills and like messing around with the skills and stuff. So it's there for those people who just want to try like a new job, a new class, and then just leave it at that. But then there's also the ability to dive deeper and like kind of strategize like, oh, let me level up this job, unlock this new skill, and then take that skill into this other job and then like kind of min-max in a way.
Yeah.
For your skills during battle. And
right.
I just
you can keep the stats that you level up from one class and move it to the next, so it's going to level up your stats even more. Did you ever try the Sujimon trainer class for your Kasuga?
No, I didn't. I forgot to add that on. How did that play?
So it's a little bit weak. It depends on your Sujimon and how high level they are. But when you level up, you get some of the highest stat growth for Ichiban, for Kasuga.
That's pretty cool.
So it's kind of worth it, especially if you're gonna do a new game plus. I think it's worth it.
I might do a new game plus later this year,
like maybe at the end of the year or something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so yeah, that's the game. That's the gameplay, right?
That's the game,
and we're gonna move on to the general discussion, which we have here 30 minutes max. So hold that.
Yeah, I wanted us to like have a chance to just chat about the game, because we're going to talk about Kiryu and Ichiban in a second, and we both have like specific discussions related to both of them. Not character analysis per se, but somewhat close to it. So I wanted to hold this space for us to just
this is our processing time.
Yeah. This episode's very selfish for us. Yeah, man.
Where do we even start?
Yeah, where do you should start. You should start because you are the seasoned veteran in the
seasoned veteran
Yakuza world.
Okay. So, I mean, when this game opens up, right, we see Ichiban, right? He's living his normal life, hello work, like you mentioned, right? And he's just going to work, right? He's living the life. He's got his little apartment. It's kind of crappy, but he's happy with it.
Yeah.
He's a very happy dude, hanging out with friends, going to the bar, right? I'm like, how's this all going to get messed up? It legit doesn't take more than like 2 hours for things just to go awry. Right?
Yeah.
So we get like, a VTuber by the name of Tatara, right?
Tatara channel.
Who is like, Ichiban's a bad guy. He's hiring ex-Yakuza, right? We covered this.
Yeah.
Everything goes to hell.
Yeah. This VTuber, this YouTube channel is like dedicated on calling out like political figures or I guess in this case, Yakuza members, just to almost like bring this social justice to them.
Yeah.
I guess because they feel that the government didn't really do a good job there. So did you want to talk about the game like chronologically or just in general? Or
what about what we liked about the game?
Yeah.
Well, let's go there. Yeah, because there's a lot of chapters in this game, right? And it's a huge game. So I mean, let's talk about just the setting, right? When you make it to Hawaii, Ichiban's like, I think Sawashiro is the character. That's like, hey, go find your mom, right? Put in this request to, go see her. Because we don't know what's going on in Hawaii yet. Yeah. At that point. We don't know that, I think Bryce Fairchild, which is like the main antagonist of the whole story, right? There's so many shenanigans going on, right? So we end up in Hawaii, we get kidnapped by one of the characters named by Tomizawa, right? He takes advantage of Ichiban because Ichiban only speaks Japanese. Yeah. Right? So Tomizawa can speak Japanese, so they start to bond, right? But Tomizawa finds out like, hey, why, kind of asks like, why are you here? And it's like, oh, Ichiban, we were looking for this guy. Yeah. Right? And he's a target. Yeah, he's a target. So, he's driving him around, it's like, oh, where are you going? Being all nice, and eventually kidnaps him, kind of, points a gun at him and it's like, I'll kill you. Yeah. Yakuza stuff.
But then he wasn't like, he was just trying to rob him in the end, right? Like he didn't know
the significance of it.
Yeah. He might have known that he was like an ex-Yakuza, but he like for sure saw him as a vulnerable tourist in Hawaii and wanted to take advantage of that. And I guess that kind of brings me to one of the points that I enjoyed about this game is it feels like it has a lot to say about social commentary in how certain people are portrayed, how certain social issues are going in both Hawaii and Japan. I think a bit more in Hawaii, though. You kind of mentioned with the corrupt cops earlier, but that's a repeated theme that keeps on coming up in this game where the cops will they'll take a bribe and look the other way, or they're working with the local gang, the Barracudas. Yeah. One cop in particular is just like helping them out and making sure that they're constantly doing something illegal, but like that they don't get caught.
They look the other way.
Yeah.
But making sure that they're not looking the other way too much.
I know.
Right?
There was even that one side quest where the guy runs into... He was another Japanese tourist that runs into the cop who's asking for donations.
Yeah, he got a donation box.
He just had a donation box because he wanted to prey upon these...
Well, that's the idea, right? Yeah. The Japanese tourists are easy to prey upon. Right?
Yeah.
He's giving money to the hula girl, the guy with the parrot, the cops, right? Anyone who's asking for it. He's like, oh, yeah.
Oh, sure, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of commentary on that, the police, on even the homelessness population and the homelessness crisis that is occurring throughout America, but is pretty prominent in certain cities and states, and it's getting there in Japan. In Hawaii. And, you know, it's due to this like snowball effect of more people moving in, raising the cost of goods, services, of housing. And then, yeah. And it's crazy because they kind of mention this like throughout the game.
Yeah.
So like, you know, I'm pretty prominently online and follow a lot of like social issue stuff. And and even if I didn't, like the game kind of dissects this for you, which is just like not something you see too often in a video game. I feel like Grand Theft Auto might be the only like thing I could think of, and the latest game came out in 2013, so they are far behind, right?
Yeah.
Grand Theft Auto 5 come out in 2013. Yeah. So like whatever social commentary they had in that game is pretty removed at this point. Or I mean, it could be updated. I don't know. I didn't really play too much of that game. But anyways, yeah, this game has a lot packed into it.
Oh yeah, it does. And going back to the, you know, we were talking about Tomizawa and so I think he knows because remember he takes the address card from Ichiban, right? And he destroys it. I think he tries to eat it because I think.
Oh, right. So you think Yamai like informed him? Yamai being, we're just saying names because we're so used to this. Yamai is the leader of this gang that Tomizawa is a part of. And Tomizawa is a cab driver when you first meet him, and he ends up being a crew member with Ichiban. But sorry. I didn't mean to jump in there.
No. But yeah, so I think he knew. I think he knew by the address, you know, because they're looking for Akane. Everyone's looking for Akane, right? So why are they looking for Akane?
Yeah.
Right. So it turns out that she kind of allied with one of the kids from Polycana, which Polycana is like a shelter, like a religious organization as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It was an organization that was meant to help like a lot of people experiencing homelessness or like orphans who need like foster care and stuff. Like they did a lot of like really good work for the community, but
the guy in charge
kind of runs it like a cult. And is a megalomaniac, psychotic. Oh, sorry, not literally psychotic. Or sociopathic is the word I meant.
Yeah, the first time you see him, it's like, you know, I think chapter 4 or 5 or something like that, right? And he shows up. You don't think he's a bad guy, right?
They present him as a good guy.
Yeah, because they even have an image of him like with angel wings.
It's a very religious Jesus-like symbolism when he first comes in. And it's disturbing. And this is why I think I asked you, like, yo, does this dude have some sort of mystical power? Because he tells someone like, I wouldn't fire that gun if I were you.
Yeah.
And the guy tests him and fires the gun, but then the gun like backfires on the guy and blows up his hand. And you're like,
him in the eye too. Something.
Oh yeah. Like the bullet just goes backwards and like I think it takes off his finger, hand, something, and then grazes his face. And you're like, oh shit, did this fool just like will that? Or like I don't know. I thought he was a sorcerer.
He's a wizard.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's just a lot to this game that I don't think we can cover in 30 minutes, right? I mean, I want to do like a story like recap, but that'll take too long.
Yeah,
you know,
not spoilers, but like, you know, as part of me going into Ichiban, I'm going to touch a bit on like some story things that happens, and I'm going to be talking about his resiliency and positivity throughout his life because he's like one of the most positive protagonists, video game characters I've ever seen. And I was going to like bring up examples and stuff.
Okay. So let's talk about the party members real quick.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So let's do that. We have Ichiban, who's, you know, the main guy, right? We got Kiryu Kazuma.
Second main guy.
It feels like he's the main guy as well because it feels like a lot of the game is focused on him because he has cancer. He has metastatic cancer.
Yeah.
And we learn about that later in the game. And Kiryu is this prominent figure throughout the Yakuza games. He's like this strong, stoic dude, right? Solves his problem with his fists. Just a really strong guy. Right. And to see him in a state where he's weakened, right? There's times in the game where, you know, you see him kind of like keeled over, right? He's like coughing up blood, you know, and it's hard to see that. So we have Kiryu, Ichiban. Ichiban is the main guy again, like we said, you know, he's happy. He's got the punch perm. You know, he's got like this lion's mane type hair.
Is that what it's called? I have no idea.
Yeah, from Yakuza 7 or Like a Dragon, right? It's the punch perm, right?
Punch perm.
And it's interesting because you know how Kiryu has the, you know, when he changes into his like white suit with the red shirt?
Yes.
And then you have Ichiban's kind of red suit and the white shirt.
Oh.
They're the inverse. These characters are supposed to be like, you know, the opposite of each other.
That's why Kiryu's so stoic and Ichiban's just like a smile, optimistic. Oh, I love it.
Yeah. So then we have Tomizawa, who's the cab driver. He's kind of like this nerdy guy, right?
Yeah,
In
a little
Hawaiian shirt.
mousy. Yeah.
His English voice fits him perfectly.
Oh,
He's
I
got
know.
awkward laughs and everything in there. Then we have Chitose, who is like this rich girl, essentially.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, you find out she's like the eldest daughter, I believe, of like one of the richest families
In Japan. Yeah.
Mhm.
And she essentially drugs Ichiban,
Yeah.
right? And steals all his stuff and leaves him nude on the beach. And that's
Yeah.
how he gets arrested.
Yep.
You know, the cops get involved and they're like, hey, we can pin any crime on you, so you better shut up, right?
Mm-hmm.
'Cause you have no identification, no passport, because his passport was taken. right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But okay, Chitose, she's part of the Fujinomiya family. She's like their eldest daughter, like you
Mhm.
mentioned, right? So she's rich, you know, she cons Ichiban eventually, essentially.
Yeah.
Takes advantage of him, steals all his stuff, leaves him nude on the beach. You know, then we have Adachi, right?
Adachi
He's
and-
a old like a detective guy. I think he's like in his 60s.
Yeah.
You know, and I do want to mention like the age for these guys, like they're older.
There's a pretty
you know?
big age range.
Yeah.
I think Chitose is supposed to be like 20.
She's in her late 20s.
Yeah.
29 or something like that.
Um,
But Ichiban, I think, is like 40s.
He's 42.
Kiryu's in his
Yeah.
50s. He's 55. Adachi's in his 60s. Then we have Nanba, who is I like how his class is homeless. That's his job. or
yeah,
something.
that I felt so because I'm like
It's from the
they make
previous
a
game.
point- oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, they make a point to say that he's a nurse and like
Yeah.
has a lot of nursing and medical knowledge. So I'm like, why are you gonna make? Why are you gonna say?
But
his class
what is his
homeless?
magic?
Yeah.
right? So his magic is like fire magic, which he'll drink
Yeah.
like he'll just like pound
Drink
some
some
alcohol
booze.
and
Yeah.
spit it out on a lighter, and that's his flamethrower, right?
I know.
He can summon pigeons, right? He'll throw like beans or like seeds at you, right? And
Yeah.
summon pigeons to attack.
It's it's certainly a caricature of like homelessness, maybe from the 90s or something.
Oh yeah, well yeah, it's you
Yeah.
know, this is Sega, this is the Yakuza team, you know, it's all
For sure.
satirical, right?
Mhm.
So we have Nanba, which is, you know, he's kind of like, he looks disheveled most of the time, you know, he's got like the kind of like messy hair, right?
Yeah.
He's got glasses, you know, he's really kind though and looks after Kiryu, right? When Kiryu has to go back to Japan,
Mhm.
you know, he takes care of Kiryu. He's all like, hey, maybe we should start that bucket list since, you know, you might have some regrets or
Right.
things that you want to get done before, you know, the cancer kills you essentially, right?
Yeah.
So we have Nanba. We're introduced to Saiko, who is Ichiban's love interest.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Sachan, I think they call her.
Yeah. Yeah. So, she was in the first game though, right?
She was in the first game.
The
The previous game.
dragon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So she's like a barmaid. She's like the mama of the barmaid
Mhm.
or of the club.
Mhm.
So she runs a club, right? And I think her job is like hostess or something.
Yeah. That's her
Or
class.
something like that. But she hits you with a purse.
Yeah.
Right, she smacks you with a purse, right? And she has like alcohol bottles that she'll shake, right, and kind of like just pop them, right, and it's like ice damage or something like that towards the enemy. We have Son Hee, which is leader of the Gomi Jewel.
Yeah, I think because these people like came in halfway through the game. I wasn't too familiar with them, and I feel like I didn't have too much of a sense of like the type of characters they
Gotcha.
are.
I gotcha. I played the previous.
Yeah.
So Son Hee she was a main like part of the story in the previous game, but she wasn't a party member.
Okay.
Right. So Son Hee being a party member in this game, she's the one with the pink hair.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
That's
she's-
new.
Yeah,
That
she's
she
new.
could fight with
She's
you.
new.
Okay.
Yeah. And she's got like, I mean, she can call in like the Gomi Jewel, which is like the Korean gang
Mhm.
in Japan, right? In Yokohama at least. To help her out, you know, she's got a lot of like stomping moves. She'll stomp on you with her heels, which okay.
Yeah.
She'll whip you with like an electric cable or something.
Right.
Yeah. So
yeah.
we'll stop there. Who else do we have? We have
I'm trying to remember his name.
Zhao.
Was that his name?
Yeah, Zhao was the one with the giant sword that he comes with, and he's a cook. Yeah, so we have Zhao, who was in the previous game. He was a previous party member.
Junji?
And then we have Jungi Han.
Jungi. Okay.
Yeah, which is he works for Gomi Jewel. He works under Son Hee. There's a lot of party members now that I think about it.
And then like Yamai is kind of
He's like a little support.
yeah, like villain turn support, which was one of my favorite character arcs. I don't know why I always love to see that happen in a game or a show.
And it's wild to see how Ichiban kind of is like, hey, we have the same common goal. You know, it just makes sense that we team up, right? You hate Bryce as well.
Yeah.
You know, let's team up. And Yamai's like, I'm not, you know, he doesn't want to. But eventually Yamai does Yamai things to get the team back to Japan.
Yeah.
Right? From Hawaii. You know, he essentially turns himself in, you know, to the Japanese police, you know, to get the crew over into Japan.
One of the first times, or the second time we see Yamai, when we revisit Akane's house, and Yamai is like kind of stunned to see Kiryu, like the dragon of Dojima, there in his presence. And I feel like this is kind of a reoccurring thing because of Kiryu's past of being like this most super powerful person, that it feels like there's constantly these characters that come in and they're like, oh shit, that's Kiryu. I want to beat him. I'm going to be powerful. And they fight him and he's like, he's an older man with cancer now. So he's not that same guy. But I really respected Yamai's respect for Kiryu.
Yeah, for his legacy, essentially, right? And I think that does it for everyone in the party.
Yeah, at least people who might like interact during the fights and stuff, and who you'll have like, what is it called? I guess story beats with. There's a couple more, but you either don't play with them or they're not always present. I mean, there's like, who was it? I'm like looking through the list right here, and I
what do they look like?
Can't remember. The leader of the Daidochi in Hawaii.
Oh,
Hanawa, yeah. And then there was the Chinese gang leader as well.
The one that his son got stolen, right? His son was kidnapped, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And we sneak into the casino to see what's going on.
Wong To. Yeah. Yeah, so it feels like there's just as the chapters go on, Ichiban recruits more people through his positivity over to his side. And it's really refreshing to see.
Definitely. Because you think about it, like Tomizawa essentially, you know, robbed him.
Yeah.
You know, tried to turn him into the police, right? And all this stuff. But Ichiban's like, no, we're cool. Like, we got a common goal. Let's team up, right? And somehow Tomizawa joins up. You know, they become friends. Chitose, who left them nude on the beach with no passport or anything, they become friends, right? Adachi and Nanba were from the previous game. But even back then, you know, Nanba saved Ichiban from a bullet hole.
Oh, right.
You know, so he saved Ichiban. Adachi was a detective who was kind of wary about Ichiban. He was like, I don't know if I should trust you, you know. But eventually, like, he just recruits these people through, like you said, his positivity. Right?
Yeah. And then it kind of borderlines toxic positivity during some parts, especially there's... Damn, I don't want to, because I talk a lot about it later.
Okay, I mean, we can wait.
Yeah. There's somebody who is a friend turned villain, the opposite arc that I like, the opposite of the character arc that I like, where it just kind of hurts because he really preys upon Ichiban's like trusting nature and desire to help people, and it kind of sucks.
It's messed up.
Makes me hate him.
Really messed up. But yeah, and I remember like going through the promotional material for the game, and there was a line that I might butcher it, but it was like the most unluckiest and happiest people you've ever met, right? For this team, and that like fits them to a T, right? Because Ichiban gets arrested, you know, gets his stuff stolen, and drugged and everything, robbed, right? Kiryu's dealing with metastatic cancer, you know, and it sounds like it's pretty bad because it's like he doesn't want to do treatment. He's like, no, I'm gonna die on my own terms. I don't care. You know, I have this last job, which is to find Akane and save Lonnie. Yeah. Right. He doesn't care about his health. This is his legacy. This is his last thing he's gonna do.
Wild how noble that is. Like how noble of a mindset he has of just still trying to like complete this last mission and like help someone else like right before he goes out.
And he doesn't have to.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't have to, but he's doing it.
Did they give like a time? Oh yeah, they do at some point. He was like says he was supposed to only live for like a few more months or something like that.
It's very early. I think the doctor, when they go back to Japan, Kiryu and Nanba, right? Because Nanba shows up to help Ichiban, and they're like, Kiryu gets beat up, and he's like, maybe you should go back to Japan.
Yeah.
Right. There's a scene with the doctor that's like, he doesn't want any treatment, right?
Yeah.
And maybe a friend down the line could change his mind. So Nanba takes that upon him, and he's like, okay, let's see what we can do to make Kiryu's like, last month's special.
Damn.
Right? And he's hoping that them as forming bonds, he'll listen to the group, to Nanba, and be like, and actually consider treatment. Right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't want him to die. Right? They're friends now.
Yeah.
This
game just time and time again like throws these. It's a very fun like dichotomy between like super goofy positive fun, but then these very real touching serious moments that kind of just leave this lasting impact on you. And I think that's why this game is so great.
Yeah,
for the ability to do that.
You're right, because there's times where you're singing karaoke in the bar and it's super silly.
Yeah.
Right. But then there's times where it's like, it's a life and death situation. We're trying to save this child from being murdered, right? From Ichiban's mom from being murdered as well. Or, we don't know at the time what's going on, why they're looking for her.
Yeah.
And then there's, again, going back to the silly moments where you fight a giant great white shark or something.
Oh my, yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, that's the boss fight, is a giant great white shark.
Yeah. Oh man, Danny Trejo's character in this game, Dwight Mendez. Yeah, it's so funny how persistent he is and how angry and like you beat him once at the kind of towards the beginning of the game. Tomizawa spares his life, has the opportunity to kill him, but he doesn't learn his lesson. He just like comes back at you eventually, and
Tomizawa had a good reason to take Danny Trejo's life, or because Dwight Mendez, right?
No disrespect to Danny Trejo,
because they pinned a crime on him, right? In the past, they pinned a crime, and he went to jail for it. So Tomizawa went to jail for it, right? And he was innocent, right? And so I think like his girlfriend at the time had a miscarriage, so they were gonna have a child. Right? They were gonna have a life together, right? But Tomizawa was in prison wrongly, right? And all that fell apart. So Tomizawa holds all this grief, this regret, this resentment, and we find this out slowly throughout the beginning of the game.
Yeah. And then throughout the rest of the game, we follow up on that, since there's like this relationship side quest with Tomizawa where we see, right? Yeah. Because his girlfriend is like still in Hawaii, and then
she comes back from to Hawaii, right? She's dating like this professor, right? He's like, well, I really want to know how she's doing, so he befriends the professor,
right?
Just to make sure he's not too crazy. He's not crazy. He's not doing anything crazy to her, But the way that ends is just like, she's happy, let her go, right?
Yeah.
She's doing her own thing now, right?
Yeah. It was a very like matured story, or like you could tell Tomizawa has matured since he first lost her, and then first like had to go into jail and stuff, and like he's had a lot of like life reflecting done. You could tell he's kind of a different person now, that he's able to just let her go. Once again, the fact that we could even join him on this journey amongst this game that is touching on so many other topics,
and I think that's what's so special about these games, is that they can hit home. It's like, it's a lot of relatable stuff in here, aside from the goofy stuff, or maybe that as well. Maybe you sang your heart out at karaoke, nobody was listening, you got upset.
I feel so bad for you for that.
Yeah, when he was pouting, I was just like, oh, okay.
Like, how y'all gonna egg him on, and then he gives the performance of a lifetime, and y'all are just like on your phones or just chilling, talking in the corner. I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
Kiryu deserves better than that.
He does deserve better, but that was like a moment that makes him human.
Yeah.
Right? Because these characters, I kind of like that these games make these characters human. They're not, like, Kiryu's super powerful, but the cancer, right? But he also has emotions as well. All these characters, they work on their emotions, essentially. Yeah. And it just feels real, like, real connections between these characters, even though they're fictional.
Yeah, and I think it does that. I mean, it helps that it's in a real world setting and set in a modern time as well, to help it make it feel a bit more real. And it's wild because I feel like typically that type of setting just doesn't interest me.
Oh yeah,
I don't really care for any sort of real world thing in a video game. Usually I think it has to be done right in order for it to entice me, and that's honestly what put me off from the first game, is the fact that you're just in this like real world Japan playing this dude beating up guys. I'm like, this ain't that cool, but I'm very glad I gave it a chance.
Gotcha. No, I'm the opposite with that, actually. I really like, so have you ever played Earthbound?
No.
Okay, so Earthbound kind of sets you in like New Eagleland, which I think is like New England or something.
Yeah.
It's got a town and everything, you know. So from Earthbound to this, I'm like, that always, like, the modern setting in a JRPG always, like, just hits for me. Really enjoy it.
That's so interesting that it hits for you, because I'm like, nah, take me to like this high fantasy.
You want to go to Midgar?
Yeah. Oh no, I don't.
You don't want to go to
Midgar? Take me out, please. I feel like we got to chat a lot about it. We should probably talk about why we love these characters and like these things that are affecting our two favorite characters.
Let's bridge that psychology.
Yeah, I know. We got to give you some psych stuff at least. We couldn't, as much as we wanted to just chat about this game for like 2 hours. I'm like, no, I want people to learn. So got to teach you something today.
Right. So let's just get into it. So my section's going to cover Kazuma Kiryu. Right, I'm going to be talking about Erikson stages of development. This is stuff that you'll learn in like general psychology. Everyone and their moms knows this stuff, right?
Well, I mean, for psych majors,
general psychology, yeah. Well, even if you take it as a GE, I'm sure you're gonna gonna get into it, you know. And then I'm going to be covering some end of life stuff with Kazuma Kiryu because, you know, the cancer. I actually have a lot to go through because I think I told you, like, I'm not going to put that much work into this. Let's just chat about infinite wealth, right?
You did.
And I just started cooking. Yeah. I was just like, you know what? Let's get into it. So let's start with Erikson's stages of development. So Erikson is a 20th century psychoanalyst who was best known for his work. He was studying stages of life. You know, and this is associated with specific psychological struggles that contribute to a major aspect of personality. So it's just broken up into stages. So stage 1 is trust versus mistrust, and this is from birth to 18 months. So the first stage of Erikson's theory of psychosocial development occurs between birth and the first year of age, and it's the most fundamental stage in life. Infants depend on their parents for care, basic need, and love. So if this is fulfilled, you know, the child won't really have too many issues with, you know, looking for love, right? Basic needs are met, all that stuff. So think about it this way. The child is utterly dependent on caregivers, birth to 18 months, right? So the child is dependent for everything. They need to survive, including food, love, warmth, safety, and nurturing. Yeah. If a caregiver fails to provide adequate care and love, the child will come to feel that they cannot trust or depend upon the adults in their life.
And like, remind me, with this theory, it was saying like there are these two like dichotomous ideas, trust versus mistrust, and like they need to have like all their needs met throughout each stage of life. Otherwise they develop they develop like some sort of like, what is it called, like kind of bad thing, like this negative character,
maybe like negative distortions, cognitive distortions, right?
Like that.
Ideas,
if
because
their need isn't met.
Yeah, if this need isn't met, like the trust, right? They can't trust adults, right? Can't trust other people, right? So if this is met, they'll be able to trust. So moving on to stage 2, which is autonomy versus shame and doubt. And this is from ages 2 to 3. This is the second stage of Erikson's theory of psychosocial development and takes place during early childhood. And it's focused on children developing a greater sense of personal control. The essential theme of this stage is that children need to develop a sense of personal control over physical skills and a sense of independence. They are starting to perform basic actions on their own, making simple decisions about what they prefer. By allowing kids to make choices and gain control, parents and caregivers can help children develop a sense of autonomy, right? So a child's able to do things on their own. Obviously, they're not going to be like driving a car at 2 to 3 ages, right? But maybe like feeding themselves, right? Or maybe go to the restroom by themselves, you know, to establish that sense of autonomy. And then we're moving on to stage 3, which is initiative versus guilt. This is from ages 3 to 5 years. This is the third stage of psychosocial development. It takes place during the preschool years. At this point in psychosocial development, children begin to assert their power and control over the world through directing play and other social interactions. So children who are successful at this stage feel capable and able to lead others. Those who fail to acquire these skills are left with a sense of guilt, self-doubt, and lack of initiative. And moving on to stage 4, industry versus inferiority. This is ages 6 to 11 years. The fourth psychosocial stage takes place during the early school years from approximately ages 6 to 11. Through social interactions, children begin to develop a sense of pride in their accomplishment and abilities. Children need to cope with new social and academic demands. Success leads to a sense of competence, while failure results in feelings of inferiority. And moving on to stage 5 is identity versus confusion. This is ages 12 to 18 years. This is the fifth psychosocial stage, takes place during the often turbulent teenage years. This stage plays an essential role in developing a sense of personal identity, which will continue to influence behavior and development for the rest of the person's life. Teens need to develop a sense of self and personal identity. Success leads to an ability to stay true to yourself, which failure leads to role confusion and a weak sense of self. So what this is saying is like, you kind of know who you are, right? What you're into, what you're going for. And if you don't, you might be spending your 20s or late 30s figuring things out, like jobs, what do you want to do in life, that kind of stuff.
They wanted you to know who you are between 12 to 18.
Between 12 to 18, yeah. Right? Again, this is like an old theory, right? So I hope this is like, updated to today.
Yeah.
Which maybe it's not, So let's see. Our personal identity gives us an integrated and cohesive sense of self that endures through our lives. Our sense of personal identity is shaped by our experiences and interactions with others, and is the identity that helps guide us in our actions, beliefs, and behaviors as we age. And so we're moving closer to where Kiryu Kazuma is in the stages of development. Mm-hmm. This next one, he is in there in the previous games, right? But we'll get to that. So intimacy versus isolation is stage 6. This is from 19 years to 40 years. That's a huge span. Yeah, that's a huge range. Young adults need to form intimate, loving relationships with other people. Success leads to strong relationships, with failure results in loneliness and isolation. These stages cover the period of early adulthood when people are exploring personal relationship. Erikson believed it was vital that people develop close, committed relationships with other people. Those who are successful at this step will form relationships that are enduring and secure. So this is more about friendships, dating, that kind of stuff. So we're going to get into stage 7, which is this is what we're going to focus on for Kiryu. These are the ages, 40 to 65 years. So during Infinite Wealth, Kiryu is 55. So he fits into this, into this stage. So stage 7 is generativity versus stagnation. Adults need to create and nurture things that will outlast them, often by having children or creating a positive change that benefits other people. Success leads to feelings of usefulness, accomplishment, while failure results in shallow involvement in the world. During adulthood, we continue to build our lives, focusing on a career and family. Those who are successful during this phase will feel they are contributing to the world by being active in their home and community. Those who fail to attain this skill will feel unproductive and uninvolved in the world. And the last stage is stage 8, integrity versus despair. This is from age 65 to death. The final psychosocial stage occurs during the old age and is focused on reflecting back on life. At this point in development, people look back on the events of their lives and determine if they are happy with the life that they lived or if they regret the things they did or didn't do. Those who look back on life they feel was well lived will feel satisfied and ready to face the end of their lives with a sense of peace. Those who will look back and only feel regret will instead feel fearful that their lives will end without accomplishing things that they should have done. So we're going to be moving on to Kiryu and how he fits into generativity versus stagnation. So real quick, Kiryu's personality, he's a stoic dreamer of the dark Yakuza world, living by a strict code of honor and a very strong sense of justice. Mm-hmm. He doesn't judge others and is generally accepting of anyone who is friendly towards him. He's a good listener, giving advice in response to his environment rather than seeking out conversations. Due to his long stay in prison, this was in Yakuza, I think, 1. He's in prison for 10 years. Kiryu tends to be awkward when it comes to everyday situations and occasionally targeted by the town's more dishonest citizens. So, he was in prison for 10 years, so he didn't get to develop, like those intimate relationships and whatnot. He has some, but not as, I think Erikson would agree with. So at the time of Infinite Wealth, he's under the control of the Daidoji, which is like a super secret Japanese politician kind of like group, in Japan. They maintain control over the country's politics and economy. So we're going to touch a little bit about Yakuza 6 real quick. So in Yakuza 6, Kiryu Kazuma, he teams up with the Hirose family down in, I think, Onomichi. They find like this battleship, right, that was not supposed to be constructed because of some World War II agreements that, hey, you can't be working on this kind of stuff, right? But they were. That was going on. So at the end of Yakuza 6, Daidoji, the old guy, dies of, old age. He has an unnamed successor that approaches Kiryu in the hospital and offers him a briefcase full of money in exchange for Kiryu's silence on the Daidoji's involvement with the battleship. So they're giving them hush money. Trying to give Kiryu hush money. However, Kiryu refuses and makes the successor another offer instead. He'll keep the Daidoji secret if the Daidoji's faction helps fake his death, Kiryu's death, and also arranged for the acquittal of Tojo clan members, which is the clan that Kiryu was part of.
Oh, I didn't know this.
Yeah. So we're getting into this. to Kiryu, he's putting his loved ones in danger because he's this super powerful, ex-Yakuza member. Everyone wants to fight him. Everyone wants to take him down. So that means that his family and, his friends suffer for it. That's what he believes, right? So he's like, you know what? Let's say that I died, erase my name. There's that one game that we talked about. Was it Like a Dragon, the man who erased his name, which is Kiryu's game.
Oh,
right?
okay.
That's when he's involved with the Daidoji. So this is before Infinite Wealth.
Okay.
So before he goes off to Hawaii and whatnot. So there's a little bit of that, and I wanted to make sure we talked a little bit about the Daidoji because that informs Kiryu's decisions. There's a part where, the whole game, it's like, you can't reveal yourself, Kiryu, because if the world knows, your family and friends are going to suffer. And the Daidoji actively threaten his family and friends.
Jeez.
We will take care of them, and not in the good way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why Kiryu is kind of on a short leash. They tell him what to do. He doesn't like that. In Infinite Wealth, you can see him fighting against that. He's trying to move away from that and kind of live his own life, but he can't, because he's putting his friends and family in danger.
Wow.
So let's talk about generativity versus stagnation. Kiryu is in the generativity stage of Erikson's stages of development by Yakuza 3, right? And in Yakuza 3, he opens up the Sunshine Glory Orphanage. This is him creating and nurturing the next generation. The orphanage persists throughout the rest of the games, So there's these group of kids he takes care of. This is his legacy. He's leaving values and what he believes in with these kids, right? But eventually, even though he's focused on his family and tries his hardest to be there for his children, after Yakuza 6, when Kiryu is supposed to be dead, he is the man who erased his name. He can no longer go back to the orphanage. So he can't ever see his kids again. Right? If they know he's alive, that's gonna mess with the Daidoji's contract, right? Hey, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Right? Because then we will have to hurt them, make sure that you are actually dead. So Kiryu made it a point to fake his death so that his friends and family, loved ones would remain safe due to his involvement in Yakuza affairs. It is why in Like a Dragon, Kiryu is warned to not expose his identity. We covered that. But eventually it does happen, right? Mm-hmm. Eventually the VTuber we talked about, Tatara, just is Kiryu's alive, right? He's not dead. That just destroys all his cover, right? And we see the ramifications of that.
Yeah.
Now everyone's looking for him. There's a part where there's people that are fame chasers, reporters that are where is Kiryu? Where is he at? What is he doing? So we see that struggle, and going back to generativity versus stagnation, you can tell that Kiryu wants to die alone in a quiet death. He doesn't want anyone to know, no one to bother him, right? So he was diagnosed with metastatic cancer due to being exposed to radioactive material during a job of his. Kiryu is unable to focus on his family, and throughout the game, you can see the struggles. In the previous game that focused on Kiryu, there's a scene where you see Kiryu crying, just crying. So the context is the Daidoji are hey, we put a camera in front of your grave, and we see that the kids come in and visit, right? And the kids eventually find the camera that's pointed at Kiryu's grave. Oh. Right? And it's Taichi, which we see in Infinite Wealth. Yeah. And then one of his adopted daughters, right? And they're hey, Uncle Kaz, I hope you're doing well. I know that you're alive, why don't you come see us? Oh, what's going on? And Kiryu's just crying. Oh, just that's the scene that got me, and even now I feel tearing up remembering it because it's so impactful. Yeah. You can tell he cares about these kids. He wants to be there, but he can't, right? You put him in danger. There's also a part where he's a grandfather as well, right, to Haruka, which is his daughter, his adopted daughter. And Kiryu, he's so hard on himself. He's all I'm a terrible grandfather. He's I can't be there for my grandson. Kiryu is obviously upset and tormented by being unable to spend time with his kids. So he's stagnating. He's getting stuck in these thoughts because, he can't do much about it. Kiryu is also cautious about opening up to the crew in the game. I'm sure you remember, there's parts in the game where the crew is hey, you can rely on us. We can help you. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't want it. He doesn't want the help. He'd rather fight alone because he's used to fighting alone. There are times in the older games where he'll team up with other Yakuza members or people or friends, right? Uh-huh. But it's not like this game where he's in a group the whole time. There's even a scene where I think it's a side quest I think it's main quest, right? Where you fight Amon, which is usually the super boss at the end of these games. He's the guy in the black suit, the black hat, who
he corners you in a alleyway type of thing. Yeah.
And he's all oh, what happened to you? Why are you relying on people? You're weak.
Yeah.
right? And his team is like, why are you talking shit to Kiryu? Right? So they all jump in, they try to fight, but they lose because Amon is a super boss. But eventually Kiryu's like, no, I can fight on my own. I got because I think they threatened Namba. Amon threatens Namba with a gun, like, I'm gonna shoot him. We're gonna see how strong you really are. Right? So Kiryu, kind of goes back to his old self, his strong self, fights Amon, chases him off. He's like, all right, we'll fight later. We'll fight one-on-one. He says something, Amon says something where it's like, I'm not gonna let the illness kill you, I will kill you. Right? Damn. And I'm just like, whoa, okay.
Calm down.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because there's this, like, all this bad blood between the Amon clan and Kiryu. From, all these games.
Yeah. So I'm missing the context.
Yeah, so that's a little bit of the context, But there, like I said, there's times where the party actually gets upset with Kiryu and is like, hey, like, you can rely on us. We'll fight with you, not for you, with you.
Right.
And so there's a part where Kiryu is ready to die. Very early in the game, Kiryu chooses not to receive any treatment, right? Again, we're going back to the stagnation, right? He's like, I'm done. I'm good with life. Let's get out of here. But however, eventually his cancer does catch up with him and he's forced to return to Japan. It gets worse, right? There's times where he's coughing up blood and they're like, the party's like, whoa, dude, like, maybe you should go back home.
Homie. Yeah.
Yeah, like, you shouldn't be putting this much effort. And eventually Kiryu's teammates, do change his mind throughout, at the end of the game. Because eventually we do see at the end where he's receiving treatment.
He's getting treatment. Yeah.
You don't see his face, you see like a hand arm shot of him, right?
Right.
He looks like, frail, kind of skinnier because Kiryu's built. He's like a built buff dude, So eventually that does change. And so the way that happens is that Namba takes it upon himself to become that friend. That friend that's going to be like, hey, maybe you should really think about the treatment. So they do a bucket list, right? So, and this is where you see Kiryu moving away from stagnation into generativity, right? Because this is the bucket list that Kiryu wants to focus on. These are the goals and desires before he passes away. What are those things? He lists things like singing his heart out at karaoke, hitting up the batting cages, trying sweets. Like, there's a line where he's like, what are the kids into these days? Sweets. And they're like, that's hilarious. And they're like, don't make fun of me. But it's like, we as the players help Kiryu complete the bucket list, right? This is what we're leaving him with to do. He's moving towards generativity. What is he leaving for his life? What is he going to leave as a legacy? And you go through like all like these tons of memories from the previous games, current reminiscence. And yeah, I mean, it's a good time. And also you can actually see that Kiryu moves towards generativity with how he impacts other people. There's these quests. They're not really quests, but there are times where like you meet up with people in his past.
Oh, right.
There's one where you meet with Taichi, who's a firefighter. This was the adopted, one of his adopted sons, right? He's a firefighter. And the thing he says is like, when I'm scared, I think about what my uncle Kiryu was like and how he dealt with problems. And I try to like summon that strength and that fearlessness to get through my own problems. Right. So you can see and tell that Kiryu made a big impact on a lot of people. Right? And that's just one like, person in his life. There's another one where there's like two guys in Kamurocho, right? They're like they run a bar and they're all like, Kiryu taught us what it meant to be essentially, strong, independent, and kind of like fight for what we believe in. And it's to the point where like some people will say like, no, because of Kiryu now we have like Yakuza running around thinking they can get away with whatever they can do, but his friends are like, no, we embody what Kiryu taught us, and that's how we get through our problems. Wow. And yeah, I mean, it's really touching. It's really great. People, the friends and family use his memory as strength because he's supposed to be dead. He's supposed to be gone. Right. But they still think about him.
Yeah.
So he left a legacy, even if he's not willing to admit it or look at it yet, or accept it.
Right.
Also, with generativity is like, you're able to change and kind of like, what are you doing? You're not stuck in your ways, and Kiryu can actually change his class. He's like the dragon of Dojima, right?
That's true. Yeah.
He's got like, he's just punching you with fists, beating the crap out of you, but you can change him into different classes. And that's him willing to learn, willing to change, willing to adapt. So you can make him a samurai, you can make him a host, you can make him a cook.
Right.
Even if that's like, well, he's just a party member. Of course, they're going to give him a job, like classes and whatnot. But I like to see that as like he's still willing to learn. You know, he's still willing to pick up on new things.
That's true. They didn't lock him just to the Dragon of Dojo.
Yeah,
class.
which I think would have been a bummer.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, totally.
You
Even
know?
though I did leave him on that for the majority of the time.
Oh, you did? No, I changed him up a lot. He was my
really?
samurai. He was my Aquanaut, which is funny because he gets like blonde hair. I don't know if you just to see like how does it, you know, what, because when you change costumes like jobs, it changes your costume and how you look.
Appearance, yeah.
So it's like I was like, oh, well, you know, what does Kiryu look like in a cook outfit as a surfer dude, Aquanaut, right? And I was like, okay, let's go.
Did you put him as like the linebacker?
No, I did that for Ichiban.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. I might have done it for Kiryu as well, honestly. I think I did for a little bit. Yeah. Going back to generativity versus stagnation, Kiryu makes a commitment to Ichiban that he will handle the Yakuza side of the main issues of the game, right? So he's working together with Ichiban, which is something that Kiryu really doesn't do. Yeah. He's the guy that wants to solve things on his own. Both work together in the separate maps. You know, Kiryu's in the Japan map. You know, he's in Yokohama. And Ichiban is in Hawaii, and they're both working together to like solve what's going on. So Kiryu doesn't resign his role as a problem solver, rather he entrusts himself and others to reach their goals. So eventually he's like, I'm going to trust you guys with this enormous task. So Kiryu is no longer the lone wolf or the lone dragon, right? Because he's the dragon of Dojima.
Right. Yeah,
dragon. He's able to mentor others as well and receive aid from others, which is something that Kiryu has struggled with in the past because he doesn't want anyone to get hurt. You know, so he's like, no, let's not be friends. Let me keep my distance because I don't want things to happen. Because in Yakuza 3, he like makes friends with another Yakuza member, right? And this guy gets killed. Oh. And it really impacts Kiryu, you know, to the point of like, I'm done with like making friends and, you know, connecting with people.
Dang.
Because that hit him so close to home. Like he lost someone he cared about. And throughout the game, we do see Kiryu more in the lives of the loved ones that, you know, passed away throughout the games. However, it's interesting because Kiryu doesn't become fixated on their deaths, right? He's not going to their graves every day, you know. He's like going here and there, you know, honoring their memory, cleaning their graves and whatnot. But he's also appreciating life and what he has to overcome and what he has, you know, already dealt with. You know, you see that he has an appreciation for it. This is one of my favorite scenes in the game where Kiryu dons his like old suit, the gray and white suit with the red undershirt, right? And he slicks back his hair, you know.
Right.
You know, he's all like, you know, it's like, oh, he's back. Oh my God, he's ready to kick some ass. Yeah. You know, he isn't stuck in his sadness or regret, but rather he is ready to make a change for the generations of Yakuza who cannot catch a break. You know how we talked about the 5-year clause? You know, he's trying to fix this so that, you know, ex-Yakuza members have a chance in society. So that, you know, they can come back, you know, and don't have to go back into the world of crime. You know, it's a vicious cycle. He's trying to destroy that. He's trying to get rid of that. You know, this is his legacy. And so when he puts on the suit again, it's like, dang, you know, it's impactful.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then finally, I think we covered it earlier, you know, at the end of the game, we do see Kiryu receiving medical aid, you know. And it's like, okay, so he listened to Nanba, he listened to the team, you know, he's not stuck in his old ways. He's willing to try to do something to, you know, live longer. You know, he had a change of heart because he was ready to go. He's like, I don't care, you know, I did what I needed to, I'm out. Right. But there's something which I hope we see in the next game what the context is. You know, I'm sure it's his friends, but I want to see how they delve into that, like him receiving treatment. You know, maybe we'll get a side game or something,
side quest or something. Yeah, just to honor him. Like, I definitely don't want him to disappear. Like, I want him to be a part of the next like a Dragon game and continue mentoring like Ichiban. When did they first interact with each other?
So they interacted in the previous game.
Oh, okay. Because that was the first time Ichiban was
so there's
introduced.
This quest where Ichiban, I think he's like trying to get information off of a Yakuza dude. Well, before that, there's a boss fight between Ichiban and Kiryu.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so it's funny because you're fighting as Ichiban against Kiryu, like your team, right? Ooh, that's a boss fight.
Yeah.
Because he, you know, at that time, Kiryu isn't sick. He's his like powerful self.
He's the dragon.
He's the dragon, right? So he's testing you. Eventually, you beat him. And I put that in air quotes, which you actually don't, because there's a cutscene where like it's Ichiban like running towards Kiryu, but Kiryu's an actual dragon, right?
Oh, no.
And the dragon just beats the shit out of out of Ichiban, right?
Yeah.
And so Ichiban's just on the ground like, yeah, I won. And he really didn't win. He was like all beat up and stuff. But Kiryu's like, I like your stuff, bro. Yeah. You're a good guy. You know?
Damn. I love that.
And yeah, and so he'll appear in Like a Dragon, here and there, like they'll interact. But Kiryu's never a party member in that game.
Oh,
he's supposed to be dead. He's supposed to be gone. So no one at that time, no one really knows who he is, right? But Ichiban and the team knows. But yeah, so that's when they interact.
Wow,
which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I was just like, they act like they, have known each other their whole lives and like have been great friends. And yeah, they are good friends, but I just didn't know when they had first met. So
yeah, I would say go back and give that like a watch, like those scenes. Might give you appreciation.
I watched a video that summarized the plot of the previous game, but I think maybe
like Ichiban Kiryu scenes or something like that.
Exactly, something a bit more specific there.
Because I recommend checking that out. Yeah, there's context there, and because you're right. Like coming into this game and you're not really sure, how do they know each other? Why are they so good friends? But that'll give you the context. But okay, so we're going to move on to End of Life for Kiryu. So this is an article, Psychological Issues and End of Life Care by Block 2006. So we're going to be talking about like suffering, end of life, that kind of stuff. So it might get a little dreary. I found it interesting. Kiryu's going through this. He's going through cancer. So let's get into it. So Block 2006 argues that suffering exists on a continuum and has many sources: grief about current and anticipated losses, fear and uncertainty about the future, unresolved issues from the past, and concerns about loved ones. Feelings of grief, sadness, despair, fear, and anxiety, loss, and loneliness are present at times for nearly all patients facing their end of lives. Yet in spite of such painful feelings, many patients, even those with significant vulnerabilities, are able to achieve a high degree of equanimity, mental calmness, and acceptance of their illness and its prognosis. So Kiryu isn't upset about his cancer.
Yeah, he seems like he came to terms with it and is trying to do something before it gets him.
Yeah, so he's like, let me do this final job.
Yeah.
He's calm about it. He's like, no, I don't need the treatment.
Yeah.
But he's also a little bit like, the way that he's dealing with it is like he pokes a little bit of fun at it sometimes, because there's a line during a drink leak with Psycho where he refers to himself as a sick, lonely man when asked about his love life.
That's right.
Yeah, he's like, you don't want to know. I'm a sick, lonely man. I don't know anything about love or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
He accepts his current situation.
That was sad sad.
It is. No, but he's also like, like, don't ask me about my personal stuff, So the usual conditions for effective coping and attainment of degree of peace at the end of life includes good communication, trust among patients, family, and clinical team, the ability to share fears and concerns, as well as meticulous attention to physical comfort and psychological and spiritual concerns. So as Kiryu spends time with the party members, he becomes accepting of his situation and eventually chooses to live and receive treatment. And you can all see the party members kind of be like, hey, do you need something? Like, how can we help you? Okay, let's work on that bucket list. Yeah. Right? They are assisting him. And so we're going to get into an assessment of Kiryu. This is a psychosocial assessment. These are kind of like the basic things that are going on at end of life. So we're going to cover developmental issues, meaning, hope, and impact of the illness, that kind of stuff. So let's get into developmental issues. So for older adults, satisfaction or unhappiness with personal and professional achievements can mitigate or exacerbate emotional distress. Worries about a spouse are often prominent. Sense of being robbed of an opportunity to retire, enjoy the fruits of one's hard work, are often frustrations. So what this is saying is like, if you're at the end of life, you're a healthy age of maybe 50, 60, 70, right? Are you going to be happy and satisfied with your life? Are you going to be upset that, you are being robbed of time? We see that Kiryu continues to sacrifice so much for the ones he loves. He's still under the Daidoji's control. So he's still kind of like, yeah, you guys are in control. I'll do what you say, right? Because they covered up his death. Yeah. That way he can keep his family safe. So for Kiryu, he's like, I did what I needed to in that aspect, kept my friends and family safe. So I would say for developmental issues, I don't think he's being robbed of an opportunity. I think he's satisfied with what he's, leaving in the world, right? Yeah. He's ready to go. So let's talk a little about meaning, hope, and the impact of illness. So a patient with cancer may have to tolerate the side effects of chemotherapy and radiation. And they may expect to die from the disease from the onset, right? So we don't see Kiryu during the main game, during the actual game, he's not receiving treatment. So he's like, okay, I don't need it. So an understanding of what the meaning of the illness is to the patient and how the patient believes she or he got the illness, an appreciation of past experiences with similar illnesses and others, and expectations of what is ahead with the illness allows the clinician to identify concerns, proactively address fears, provide focused reassurance, and help the patient plan for the future. Mm-hmm. So this is more for people that are working with end of life, right? But in this context, I'd say, his friends, again, they're like, let's do that bucket list. What are your fears? What are your desires? Let's work on it. Yeah. So we're trying to help them find a sense of meaning in life. And in an illness arises from the belief that one's life has a purpose, that life is a gift, and that one has a responsibility to work towards personal growth, peace, and transcendence through connection with something beyond the self. So Kiryu grows to appreciate those around him during the game. His party members become trusted confidants. I believe he changes his mind again to receive treatment. As for hope, we see at the end of the game that Kiryu regains his name. Do you remember that scene where like Haruka and Haruto walk into the hospital looking for Kiryu, and there's an empty bed, and then the name tag says Kazuma Kiryu.
Yeah.
Right. So he was able to reclaim his name back, and that offers so much hope for him in the future.
Oh, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. I guess because I didn't really understand the context of how he gave up his name and why. Wow.
Yeah. So it's like, whoa, like there's that hope,
Yeah.
Is Kiryu not hoping he survives? I mean, he's receiving the treatment, so I'm assuming.
Yeah, he must be holding on to some sort of hope, at least, if he's willing to go through the treatment. But maybe he's also just kind of doing it for his friends and family because they see that they care about him, and maybe because of how much of a caretaker he is, he wants to give them the hope that they want rather than give him the hope, like take the. I don't know. I mean, we can't open up his mind just yet, but
right,
yeah.
But that's Kiryu kind of like, we're talking about like an assessment, right? Of like end of life, But he's doing well.
He's doing pretty well.
He's hoping, he's changing. He's doing what he can. Let's get into the coping styles. So coping, according to Avery Weissman, a distinguished psychoanalyst who studied the phenomenon extensively, he's saying that coping is a strategic effort to master a problem, overcome an obstacle, answer a question, dissipate a dilemma, anything that impedes our progress. So examples of coping responses include seeking information, keeping busy, redefining options, resigning oneself, examining alternative, expressing feelings. So Kiryu is coping by taking on one more job to resolve the conflict of the game, which is to find Ichiban's mother, Akane, and to save Lonnie, right? This is the way that he's coping. He's putting all he can into this. He's running away, right? He's distracting himself. That's what he's doing. So he's not doing a very good job about it because now his body is physically degenerating, right? He's coughing up blood. He's getting hurt. But eventually he gives that to Ichiban. So he's like, hey, you can take care of it. I believe you. Kiryu's still beating ass, right? He's still fighting,
Yeah.
But he's got the support of his friends. So yeah, Kiryu is hoping that he makes one last change in the world. He has a legacy. He already has one, but I think to Kiryu, he's all like, what more can I do? However, like I said, this isn't the healthiest thing to do, because he's like winded a lot. Like he's out of breath, coughing up blood. He's getting beaten pretty badly. Do you remember that boss fight with the three Yakuza members?
Yeah, that was
Saijima,
rough.
Daigo, and Majima. They will beat his ass.
Yeah. It was hard. It was a hard fight in general in the game.
Yeah. And let's see. So still on coping styles, there's a dynamic tension between coping and defending. When there are new and overwhelming realities, when the patient receives ominous news about the presence of a new brain metastasizing, defending may predominate, meaning that when the patient has some time to live with and process the news, he or she may be able to invoke more effective coping strategies, right? So you can cope or you can defend, kind of deny what's going on, right? It's like, no, whatever, I can deal with it. So Kiryu is having none of this, with Nanba and the team suggesting Kiryu stop and receive care at the beginning of the game, right? So he is defending. He's like, no, I don't need treatment, let me go out the way I want to, no one else is going to take me out but me, myself, and I. Party goes along with it, but Kiryu eventually is convinced, to receive treatment. So the next section of this article is the impact on sense of self. So being independent and in control are characteristics that some patients value highly. Sounds like Kiryu. And become important members of a person's identity. Illness challenges that, and personally, because it's like, well, it's going to impact your sense of self. Are you going to be independent? Are you going to still be able to live on your own, do your own things?
Right.
So despite Kiryu teaming up with others in previous game, it wasn't to the extent of infinite wealth. Kiryu has always been able to be independent and handle his issues. However, the metastatic cancer challenges Kiryu's sense of self, as he has to accept aid from the party members and accept that they are willing to step up for him, and he needs to trust people as well. So he's transforming to someone that can trust others, right? And it's not easy for him. It's something that he struggles with throughout the game. As for relationships, the relationship section of the article, it's saying that life-threatening illnesses changed relationships. That makes sense, right? Illnesses can both create strain on relationships as well as enhance appreciations for the importance of loved ones and a wish to connect more deeply, as well as worries about family members and a major feature of life-threatening illness for most patients. So, it's going to make or break relationships, it's going to enhance them or whatnot. So Kiryu actually appreciates being called a best friend. The detective Makoto Date.
Oh yeah,
There's it's the same scene. No, it's a different one. It's a different scene when Makoto meets with like the head of a taxi company out in a region in Japan that Kiryu was part of when he went into hiding. So this is Yakuza 5.
Oh, okay.
So this is before he lost his name and all this stuff. There's a lot here. I'm sorry about that.
I don't remember that at all. But okay.
it happens in Infinite Wealth, right? And there's a line where Makoto Date was like, Kiryu's my best friend, right? And you can tell that Kiryu's like, wow, all right, that's really nice of you to say. He appreciates that. Even though he's ill, even though Kiryu is ill, he's still like forming this deeper relationship with the detective, with Date. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Because he becomes vulnerable, right? The detective and Kiryu, and they're able to form a deeper connection, And I think that's just really cool to me to see that, because I've seen all these games, I've played all these games. But also, with relationship, Kiryu worries for his children that may be left behind. He's unsure how they are doing due to the Daidoji faction barring, they're not allowed to contact each other, Kiryu and his children, right?
Yeah.
There's a scene where we see, again, Taichi, he's a firefighter. Kiryu's proud of him. I mean, it's a really touching scene. So as stressors for end of life, because life-threatening illness represents such a major adaptational challenge, the presence of other stressors superimposed on the illness has a major impact on how an individual copes. Stresses related to relationships, work, finances, housing, transportation, legal matters, etc. are likely to impair the individual's ability to cope with serious illness. So Kiryu stresses about leaving Lonnie and Akane out to die as he cannot finish the job. He's worried that things will go awry, that they'll go wrong, things will be disastrous. Kiryu entrusts Ichiban to handle the situation, but that doesn't mean Kiryu doesn't want to accompany Ichiban in Hawaii to find Akane and Lonnie. Right. So this is something that stresses Kiryu out, because after he's knocked out, like I think he takes a crowbar to the face by Yamai, right? In that scene where like the forest is burning and they're like, they get away in the car. Well, Ichiban gets away in the car, right? Yeah. And Kiryu's like, just leave me here. They want me. Like, just go. Kiryu gets knocked out, and later on we see him having like a nightmare of Lonnie being taken by like shadowy figures, right? Kiryu feels responsible to save Lonnie. That's what the nightmare means, right? And it's parallels to how he met Haruka, his daughter, in Yakuza 1.
Oh, okay.
Because she was like she was a child who was being chased, by the Yakuza, right? Because she had like information on like $1 million or maybe $1 billion or something like that. She had like something.
Okay.
Yeah. So they were looking for her. And so there's like this parallel, right? So Kiryu, is like, well, I need to save this girl. He's already dealing with, cancer, right? And he's putting on all this major stress.
Right.
But with the help of his friends, they resolve the conflict. I mean, it gets resolved, right? And that's cool. That's great. So the last thing I want to talk about concerning this article is that moving away from infinite wealth, I just wanted to put this here, was that all patients with progressive life-threatening illness require attention to psychological issues. Compassionate listening, expert assessment, and skillful intervention will reduce suffering, enhance quality of life, and create conditions for growth at the end of life. And I want to highlight the growth at the end of life, because we definitely see Kiryu growing as a person by the end of the game.
Right. And you still can't, I mean, like that, I feel like that could go for everybody, like in the real world. Hopefully, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like this is a very sensitive subject.
It is, yeah.
And definitely we'll put a trigger warning at the start of this conversation. But ideally, you'll want to still be able to grow at the end of your life. Hopefully, the end of your life isn't unexpected, so that you have these opportunities and time to process. And I don't know. I'm appreciative that you put that quote there, just to give this like summary of what can help people when they get to this stage in their life and stuff. That's touching.
Yeah, I definitely, like this is fictional stuff, right? But like this end of life article, right, and applying it to Kiryu, and like this is gonna apply to everyone.
Yeah,
right.
I know it's funny. You want to say, because it feels like with something, or like with most things we talk about, concepts, video game, or like whatever. Rarely is there something that applies to everyone, but life and death,
and taxes,
literally apply to everybody. So we're gonna be here one day.
So that was my section.
Wow. I do not want to follow that up.
No, don't worry. I felt like I was rambling at some point.
No, I mean more like just the impact of this. I feel like I've told you before of how like death feels like a ever looming theme in like the past few years of my life. So I feel like this really resonated with me. So to hear this, almost want to just like, I don't know, stew in it for a little bit before going to the complete different topic of resiliency and positivity from Ichiban Kasuga. But
let's go.
Nah, wait. You're right. Let's go. I should just do it.
So
cool.
Ichiban.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, first of all, quick 1 minute or 2 minutes. What do you think about Ichiban?
Oh yeah, no, I love him.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Honestly, like he might be one of my favorite protagonists of any video game that I've ever played. There's something so enticing and heartwarming and welcoming that about his personality and who he is. I feel like he just has the ability to win anybody over except for Psycho. But yeah, I love it. Yeah. How about you, coming from a fan of the series and then seeing Ichiban introduced as like a main character, almost, kind of taking the throne from Kiryu?
So I really love Ichiban. Even in the previous game, in Like a Dragon, where Ichiban was introduced, he's just a like really humble guy, right? He's really positive all the time, strong dude,
Yeah.
He's kind of inspirational as well.
Yeah.
Because no matter how things turn out, like he's there, he's like, I'll do my best, and I really do appreciate that. Especially like, I think something that I love is that these protagonists are older, right? And that speaks a lot because, like, I mean, in JRPGs, they're like 18, 15, 16, right?
I know, like, with Cloud being, like, in his young 20s.
Early 20s, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, there's hope for us in our 40s.
I could still grow. I could still learn and then inspire people. Yeah, I know. Life goal to be Ichiban Kasuga at this point. But yeah, so I definitely want to tell you more about him. We talked a bit about his history. I'm going to do a very rough kind of yada yada, a lot of stuff with his history, just for anyone who's unfamiliar. And he's like, a newer character. So Ichiban Kasuga, he's like 42 years old. His birth parents are Akane Kishida, who we're looking for in this game, and then Masumi Arakawa, which was like the previous leader of which Yakuza clan was it?
It might have been Tojo, an offshoot of Tojo.
An offshoot of Tojo. Yeah, that sounds about right. But even though these were his biological parents, he was actually raised by someone named Jiro Kasuga in Kamurocho. And this was because of this accidental switch between two babies who were placed in lockers in Shinjuku Station. Yeah, just a very weird, unfortunate circumstance there. I know the first game talks a bit more about the detail as to how this occurred and like who else was affected and stuff. But as far as Kasuga's story goes, Kasuga was mostly a juvenile delinquent, often got into trouble as a kid, as a teen. And this culminated with him being nearly beaten to death and had to be freed by his biological father, but he didn't know it at the time, Masumi Arakawa. And Kasuga vowed to do whatever he could for that Arakawa family after that.
Oh yeah, and he loves Dragon Quest, don't forget that.
And he loves Dragon Quest. Yes, that's why it's called Like Dragon Quest. I actually did not know that until maybe sometime last. It was later than I should have known that. But yeah, so when he was 24, at the request of Arakawa, he took the fall for a murder committed by another Yakuza member, Sawashiro, and was sentenced to 18 years in prison. Because of his devotion to the Arakawa family, he lost 18 years of his life, of like these prime youth, young adult years from 24 to 42. So yeah, when he finally got out at the age of 42, he meets several people, goes through these adventures that are detailed in the first game. And, this involves Kasuga and his friends that we already spoke about, taking down a corrupt politician who was the son of Masumi Arakawa. This was a huge, bit that I just skipped. Like that's the plot of the whole game.
Of the previous game.
Yeah. Of the previous game. Sorry. But yeah. So then during this game, we catch up again with Kasuga 2 years after the events of this first game, which also involved the breakup of several Yakuza groups in an event called the Great Dissolution. And Kasuga is sent to find his mother, Akane, who's in Hawaii. There he meets the friends that we talked about, Tomizawa Chitose, runs into some older friends with Kiryu, Adachi, Nanba, as they're looking for Akane and trying to take down the Palekane gang or cult. Obviously, Kasuga and his friends prevail in this task, but not without some adversity and hardships along the way. So ultimately, this results in beating the leader of the Palekane. His name is Bryce Fairchild, and this reveals this greater truth about Palekana and other gangs and the Yakuza who were involved. So we didn't even really talk too much about that, but like the Bryce Fairchild, the leader of the Palekana cult gang,
religious group. At first of the religious group, right?
Yeah.
And they get back to Hawaii and whatnot. It sounds like a good deal.
Yeah.
Till it's not.
Until you find out that he is actually like, his master plan was to store this radioactive waste from all these other world powers, and like these powers would pay him money and he would just take care of it. But what he was doing was like storing it in an island. It was just an island, but was it even like a dormant volcano or something? Or maybe not that. Okay, maybe it wasn't a volcano, but it was definitely an island. So obviously like some bad thing would happen if too much radioactive waste just spilt into the waters, like not that far offshore from Hawaii. You eventually beat Bryce, and then you save the day. But in general, Ichiban continues to be one of the most positive and resilient persons of any video game character I have ever seen. And like I said, he might just be my favorite protagonist of all time due to his love for his friends and his moral compass of just doing the right thing. And I feel like everyone needs an Ichiban in their life. We all need someone like this. He never judges others for what they've done in the past or what their intentions even were. As long as you now want to do the right thing and vow to be not even vow, but just show like a desire to be morally good, he's going to forgive your previous deeds. I mean, like we see this with Tomizawa, who robbed him, kidnapped him. We see this with Chitose, who drugged him, stripped him from everything he owned, tried to get him arrested, and yet he still loves these people. Yeah. They're his best friends now. So I feel like what I wanted to talk about with Kasuga in terms of some sort of psychological thing is his positivity and resilience. And I want to share some examples of these hardships in his life and then kind of his reaction to it. Okay. To show that his resilience and positivity and just bring that to light. So, with most video game characters, we only see a slice of their life. So obviously it's impossible to say whether they were or were not diagnosed with any psychiatric disorder unless we've seen this whole life. And I bring this up because of the definition of resilience. And that is, in an article, it defined resilience as the ability to adapt successfully in the face of stress and adversity. Resilience in positive psychology was popularized by Martin Seligman, who extensively researched positive psychology. Did you know about this? I feel like we didn't really learn about this guy in our
I don't think classes. So. I remember taking a positive psych class in undergrad, though.
And they didn't even talk about Martin?
A little bit. Oh, I mean, that was years ago, so... Yeah, I don't remember much.
I only knew about him because there's someone else in a lab in undergrad, in a lab that I was in undergrad, that was doing positive psych research. So they kind of knew a lot about Martin Seligman. Seligman was tired of looking at the negative and pathological aspects of psychology and psychiatric disorders, primarily in a Western psychology lens, where... at this point, they would say that something's wrong with you and then try to diagnose and figure out where that thing went wrong with you in your life and then how to fix it. But Seligman wanted to do something different and focus on what's right with you, something a bit more positive in psychology. So resilience can be seen through successful attempts in getting through environmental challenges. And this is especially true when others might have faced similar challenges and are later diagnosed with psychiatric disorders such as PTSD or depression, are typically the common ones for this type of stuff. But people who exhibit high resilience will get through these challenges and not be diagnosed with anything. And this kind of fits Ichiban Kasuga, and which is why I said that we haven't seen him throughout his whole life. So we don't know if this is going to come up later in his 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. But so far right now, he seems to be pretty well adjusted. And in the case of Ichiban Kasuga, like I said, it's not really showing any signs of distress, even when faced with insurmountable challenges, such as being mugged and arrested on the beach. So I kind of pulled these examples, tried to go chronologically throughout the game, of just like when something occurred and then his reaction to it. And I know, like, with most video games, like people are constantly going up against challenges and stuff like that. But there's something about the way Ichiban faces every challenge that is just refreshing and feels like a unique take on that protagonist character arc that I feel like you don't often see in other games. I feel like you typically get the protagonist to be stoic or something, whereas Ichiban is just, I don't know, he kind of acknowledges like the shitty thing somebody did and then puts on a happy face and continues it forward. So I really appreciated that. So even though he is fired from a job helping people, he continues to help however he can and still will take the blame for like getting other people in trouble. So Kasuga did not let this firing from Hello Work prevent him from helping others, because he continued to protect whoever he could, however he could, in order to give these Yakuza members a better life, especially when he feels like the Japanese government has failed them. This felt most notably like he started helping someone at the beginning of the game, got fired, and then that person still showed up. And I remember that person being angry with him and beat him up, and Kasuga was just taking it.
Yeah.
Like, he was like, I can't do anything at this point. I can't get this guy a job that he wants or whatever. So I'm going to do what I can do and just let him take his frustration and anger out on me. That seemed like a pretty negative, adverse thing to happen to him. And yet Kasuga does not let that deter him from his goals. Next, when we find him in Hawaii touching down for the first time, he's robbed by Tomizawa, which we've talked about a bunch of times. And he's only doesn't get arrested because of this character named Eiji, who Kasuga calls Achan throughout the whole game. And we kind of saved talking about Achan until now because... I guess because I asked you to. And the reason I wanted to save that, because Achan was just a piece of shit. I hated him so much for what he did to my boy Kasuga. He took not so much advantage. I don't know. I'm struggling to find the words because it pissed me off when the revelation came like halfway through the game. So after Achan, which we're about to get into, Kasuga is drugged from Chitose during the first time they meet on Akane's beach house. And he's like mugged, stripped naked, left on the beach. And then he's promptly arrested by these corrupt cops. But he does not let this affect his view of Chitose. He continues to value her input and see her as a welcome member of the group. And I also made like a side note that it seems like Kasuga's frustration with this corrupt police kind of fuels him into the escape. So yeah, like he sees this corruption and he knows he can't really do anything about it to like fight them one-on-one like he normally would with I guess that's just how he deals with things, is by punching people. So he does kind of harm them and then leaves, but it was a little unrealistic because, for sure cops would have shot him. In the real world. If you like headbutted one cop and made a quick run for the exit, he would have been dead. I think the biggest example of his positivity and resiliency comes with Achan and Chitose, because he's betrayed by them both. Chitose betrays him kind of twice in some pretty big ways. Yeah. And then she does it because she's being blackmailed by Achan. This, like I said, is like the biggest test of Kasuga's resilience, positivity, and judgment. Since this betrayal leads directly to deaths of some of their friends and people that they've been working with. And Achan's betrayal, I feel like, hit the hardest and got me so fired up because when we first met him, he's in a wheelchair. Mm-hmm. And Kasuga assists him when the flight attendants can't seem to get Achan back in his chair. And he preys upon he knew that Kasuga had this relationship with another friend who was also in a wheelchair. I forgot what the friend's name was. It was
Masato Arakawa's son.
Oh, okay.
Well, at that time, they didn't know that wasn't his son, right? But it was like the heir of the Arakawa family.
And that's the one that became the politician?
Yes.
Okay. The video I watched, that wasn't quite as clear as I thought it would be. Yeah, so Kasuga had this friend who was also in a wheelchair, and he took care of, not really like as his caretaker, but he, would hang out with him.
Yeah, he was also assigned to help him out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So Eichan preys upon this fact and like injects himself with something to paralyze his legs so that Kasuga could see him and feel like he like wants to help him because he knows what it's like to like have to deal with being physically unable to walk and have to sit in the chair. And after he helps him, they continue to go on adventures like throughout Hawaii. Yeah. And he like wheels him around, stands up for him when others are like making fun of his condition and stuff, and just like treats him as a person. And that's something that I believe is a line in the game. AG mentions that Kasuga is like the only person who sees him just as another person and not as someone with a disability.
Yeah.
And I felt this was also really important, like in terms of social commentary of how this message kind of showed like this acceptance of non-fully able-bodied persons, and how it seems like a lot of times they might feel ostracized because people will treat them differently because of their condition. But yeah, so I just wanted to call that out, give some more brownie points to this game there. But yeah, so like later on we find that, he lied about this whole time. This was just to get back at him because Eichan like hates any member of the Tojo clan and anyone associated with the Tojo clan. So Kasuga, even though knows of this hatred, he will continue to call AG by his nickname, Eichan, which I've been saying, and still shows this friendly affection towards him. Even saying stuff about how all the great memories they shared back in Hawaii still meant something to Kasuga, even if AG denies it. That hurt to see someone like still so emotionally attached to this cruel person who is treating him poorly. And once we get to the end of the game, this comes full circle because Kasuga, one of the final shots we see of him, he's carrying Eichan on his back, making the way to the police station to turn himself in. He's carrying him on his back not because he injected himself yet again with like a paralyzing thing, but he like hurt his ankle or broke his ankle or something like that.
I think it was a side effect from the actual.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
I thought I saw the ankle looking a little twisted or something, but maybe, yeah. Either way, that fool, he wasn't able to walk.
Yeah.
And Kasuga convinced himself to turn him in and promised to be there for him when he gets out.
Yeah.
Because Kasuga went through that himself, and when he came out, he didn't have anybody. He was left just to fend for himself, and I'm sure he can empathize with that feeling of, I don't know, a friend or someone, especially after being locked up for so long. So it's like, even though I'm angry at Eichan, because Kasuga forgives him, I'm like, okay, I forgive him too.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe not really, but
it's pretty messed up because AG is like preying on Kasuga's empathy and compassion.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He has no remorse for it.
None at all. And it hurts to see. Yeah, and that's why it's like, it's a little borderline toxic positivity where Eichan tried to kill him multiple times as well, and like harm him, harm Akane, harm Lonnie, and he still is just like, I don't know, man. We shared some beautiful moments in Hawaii, and I can't let those go. So yeah, I don't know. Kasuga is a better person than me. That's what this is saying. And then, yeah, Chitose, I mentioned, like, betrayed him twice, because the first time Chitose drugged him and stripped him from everything, yet Kasuga still sees her as good. But the second betrayal is when she reveals that she is the voice behind the mysterious Tatara channel, that was calling out the different members of the Yakuza for these, like, bad things that they were doing, which were, for the most part, completely fabricated. Like I said, she accused Ichiban of hiring these ex-Yakuza members to steal on his behalf. That was not the case. He got this person a job as a secret shopper, or like a secret shoplifter.
Yeah.
So he was being paid to go into these shops and try to steal so that this security company can figure out where there's holes in these retail shops' security.
Right.
But the camera caught the story of him stealing, and then showing up later at a table with Kasuga with all the stolen items. So did not look good for him, but that wasn't the true story. And even though like Eiji and Chitose did all of this, Kasuga still understands that she did this, because of the blackmail. So he's not really holding this against her. And yeah, it's crazy how much compassion and positivity he has. And it just keeps on driving him to assist others and doing like these morally just things. Another instance in which he continues to show like this resilience and positivity is through assistance from Yamai, who was another like gang leader.
Who's looking for Akane, looking for Lani.
Yeah. It's funny because he's like looking for them because he knows that the other gang members are looking for him. He doesn't really know why, but he was like, oh shit, this is my chance to like be a big shot. Everyone else is looking for them. I got to do it too. So, but yeah, in terms of like Kasuga's relationship with Yamai, he still understands that Yamai has his reasons for what he does. And, this persistence and resilience eventually wins Yamai over because Kasuga keeps on beating him in fistfights. And Yamai eventually assists them in finding Akane and providing shelter, and even provides like shelter for Akane and Lani. So, and this graduates to Yamai even eventually sacrificing his own freedoms by turning himself in for a murder he committed previously
in Japan.
In Japan, yeah, in order for the crew to return safely to Japan. Yeah, Kasuga's kind and positive nature seems to rub off on others throughout the game, just like wherever he goes. And yeah, there's some other things that, come up with Kasuga and his resilience, where he continues to pursue Bryce and the Palikana gang, even though there are multiple gangs teaming up against him. Kasuga understands that the odds are stacked up against him, but he continues to commit seeking justice for all this wrongdoing. And even at the end, during this final fight, Bryce tries to commit suicide by jumping into this giant pool of radioactive material. Mm-hmm. I cannot imagine the effects of that. But Kasuga jumps after him. Catches him. Yeah, just so that...
Like the leg, right?
Yeah. Yeah, just barely nabs him from falling in just to be sure that he's adequately punished.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He did some bad stuff.
Yeah, he sure did. But yeah, and even other than like these main quests and these main story beats, there's all these other instances in which Kasuga is like helping others, such as there's that kid in the lemonade stand.
Oh, yeah.
He wanted him to do well to buy the thing for the nanny that the kid was in love with. It was so heartwarming. And then I believe we already talked about it with the Japanese tourist and his infatuation for this native Hawaiian woman who was scamming him for his money. And yeah, like everywhere you go, Kasuga is helping somebody. So why is all this resiliency and like positivity important? I feel that, and some articles will show that resilience helps us to persevere through challenges and create this stealing effect that helps strengthen our responses to similar future adversities. So to have resilience will help us better cope through life and not feel like these stressors and adversities will get the best of us. One article sought out to explore this notion of like positive relationships are not just purely the opposite of negative relationships, and that they can like kind of coexist.
Okay.
Like, for example, a relationship that is satisfying and beneficial is not just the inverse of relationships that are distressing and harmful. So the article said that this might be further explained by saying how a relationship can hold both positive and negative aspects inside of that relationship, because those aspects are independent of one another and they don't directly affect each aspect. So stating that the processes that make a relationship one or the other should be thought of as independent and not just the opposite. I felt like this article stood out to me because this falls in line with how Kasuga is portrayed and how the relationships he fosters with others seem to weigh and value the positive aspects much more than the negative aspects that keep on coming up. So, this is apparent in how multiple people have betrayed him, and yet he still continues to befriend them and value his time with them. And I feel like all of this had an impact on me and my desire to help like other people, and not maybe help other people, but maybe view life through a more positive lens and maybe display a bit more resilience by trying to mimic what Ichiban Kasuga would do. got to live my life like Ichiban, pretty much. Yeah, his positivity like rubbed off on me, and I'm like, damn, maybe I should try to be a bit more positive, optimistic, heartwarming to others and stuff like that. So yeah, I feel like because I ended this game with these thoughts in mind, and having this character like affected me and who I am, this game will forever hold a special place in my heart. And same with Ichiban and Kasuga and Kiryu too.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I think that takes us at the end of this episode, because we're about to hit 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
Normally we would talk about another game we've been playing, but we both have been playing the same other game, and we're actually going to be talking about that for the next episode, which we forgot to announce at the start of this episode. We're going to be changing our broadcast schedule. So we were doing every 2 weeks, but
so, yeah.
Now we're going to change that to every month. I think given the amount of research time and everything else dedicated to making a podcast, it just works a bit better for us. And we're going to stream more and play through some more games, so that will give us a bit more fuel of games and characters to talk about. Yeah, I don't even think I said what we were going to talk about next episode.
We're going to talk about Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, Rebirth. So we already talked about Remake, but it's time to circle it back around to Rebirth and do some more, maybe some character dives. Definitely talk about the game. We both at this point have not finished it yet, but curious to see where that game is going to go with like the main antagonist. So we're going to do another deep dive for that episode. I don't know, Joe. Was there any other thing?
I mean, no, I don't think so. Any final thoughts on Infinite Wealth?
Oh, I'm sure we're going to revisit this at some point, maybe to talk about some other characters, maybe do a case study for some other character. But as far as right now, I don't think so. I feel like we've talked enough about that game. Oh, man. What about you?
I mean, I really miss Infinite Wealth. Not going to lie.
Yeah.
Wish I could play it all over again.
Yeah. You could with New Game Plus.
I could. I would have to put down the $20 for New Game Plus, which not great.
Did you try doing the New Game Plus and then it didn't work? Or
so you have to purchase it. It's like kind of like DLC, I think.
Because I didn't try it, but it showed up on my game. Like, it allows me to select it. I just didn't hit New Game Plus, so I don't know if like they. Yeah, I was wondering if you tried that and then like a paywall came up or something.
No, I haven't tried it. I just what I read online. It's like, oh, you'd have to pay for it and that kind of stuff. Which it's okay. I mean, we're working our way through Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, right? So
yeah,
we need that time.
Totally.
No, not a second playthrough of Infinite Wealth.
Yeah,
not yet.
I know, and I still want to touch on Dragon's Dogma too. But I know there's a lot of controversy there. But yeah. Anyways, so we're gonna keep on streaming. Feel free to send us any questions you have, or like any suggestions about any games or like character deep dives to our email on mind.controllers.pod@gmail.com. And I don't know. Did you have any parting words for everybody?
No, I just want to say, thank you for listening, right? Thank you for listening to us just yap about Infinite Wealth and process that this game is over.
Yeah.
That's really what this episode was about. It's like, oh, dang, dude, we really got to talk about this game because, yeah, it's like there are times throughout the day where I'm doing stuff and like, man, I really just miss Infinite Wealth.
Right.
Just miss the characters.
It was always heartwarming to come back to like play this game and like be with the crew. Yeah, but I mean, we don't really have that now since we're playing some other games.
Yeah, since we're playing other games. Yeah.
But no, thank you all for listening as well. Like, greatly appreciate it. Thank you for anybody who is listening and watched our stream. We're still trying to go through Alan Wake Remastered. We're going to make our way through that game first and then talk about Alan Wake 2. We'll probably do a deep dive once we go through Alan Wake 2 as well. So we're going to get through both games and then do a deep dive. But yeah, really appreciate everybody. Cool. Well, thank you all. Take care of yourselves, and
see you in the next one.
Bye.